my grandpa was a huge lover of music, especially Mozart. And the next piece that I'm going to play with our string quartet today is the Beethoven Romance in F major. And anytime that this was on the radio for Grandpa, he would call me up. He wouldn't even say anything. He would just hold the phone up to the radio. I would hear it. So this was a very special piece for us.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Anderson. About a month ago, Linda got a hold of me and asked if I would be the MC for this wonderful event, gathering, celebration of the life and legacy of Clark Ewing. I have to tell you, I'm just so honored to be able to do that. 33 years ago, Clark gave the eulogy at my father's funeral celebration at Toledo Rotary. One of the things I've always remembered about that eulogy, he talked about the fact that today we've lost a giant man. We're talking today about another giant. That man, Clark Ewing, who cast a big shadow. We know the shadow that he cast on all of us, but in doing that, if you read the Clarkisms, the very first one tells it all. Never forget the campus for the campers. Right beyond that is that live your life with a life of service. And that is what Clark did. He did it with his wonderful wife, Marilyn. What a team. Certainly he was on assisted living for a long time with Marilyn. There's no question about that. My goal today is not to talk much, but to just let you know what we're doing. We're going to have 13 speakers. You've got them in your program. Each one will speak, introduce themselves. When they sit down, the next speaker will come up, and interspersed with that will be some more music. So just sit back and enjoy these reflections of family and friends of Clark. And we'll start with Jenny Lane.
All right. Hello, and welcome to YMCA Store Camps here today. I'm here in a couple of roles, and one is that I've been a board member here at the camp for the last 4 years, and I'm proud to serve camp in the same tradition that Clark valued. In to continue his legacy of putting young people first. So on behalf of STORE, I want to thank everyone for coming, and just to say how moving it is to see how many people came here whose lives Clark touched, and then how many we know ripple out. And I'm also welcoming you in my role as Clark's oldest grandchild. So to me, he and my grandmother, Marilyn, embody what it means to unconditionally love and support family. And when I say family, I mean everyone he interacted with, right? And so I welcome all of you who are my family through Clark. So we are grateful to camp as always. They always have open arms, and we're grateful to the staff who are supporting this gathering as they get ready for the campers, hundreds of campers' arrival tomorrow. And STORE, we know, is going to continue to be a haven. It has been a haven. It was a haven for me many times, and probably for many of you in this room. So it is totally appropriate that we are gathering here today to celebrate Clark in the place that he loved most. It would not surprise you, probably, to know that up until his death, when he couldn't sleep at night, he would lie in bed and cook up innovative ideas / schemes for camp. Whenever he would have a short stay in the hospital and you'd come and visit him, he would tell you about every person who he interacted with and what their connections were to camp. Whether it was that they'd sent a kid of theirs, or they had been in 6th grade camp, or he would figure out, it's like that 7 degrees of separation, he would figure out everyone's connection to camp. And he was endlessly encouraging people to send their kids to camp, even offering scholarships as if money was no object. So Clark loved camp, and he loved us, and we love him. So I often find myself still using the present tense when I refer to my grandpa. I feel like he is always with me. At STORE board meetings, I hear his voice in my head, usually trying to help me see things through every child's eyes. And sometimes his voice is cracking a joke, which I usually try to censor, but sometimes it just comes out, right? And he told his parables so many times that I think I will have the answers when I ask myself, what would Clark do? So since this is Clark's final campfire, I will start things off with a brief activity. I'm going to read a few statements, and if one is true for you, please raise your hand and keep it up for a moment so we can look around and see. So, raise your hand if you came from outside of Michigan to be here today. Whoa. Okay, thank you. You may put your hands down. Raise your hand if you came from outside of the country to be here today. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for making that trip. Raise your hand if you ever heard Clark yodel or yell, "Hey-o!" Yeah. Raise your hand if Clark ever told you how many weeks a kid should spend at camp. Raise your hand if you ever worked at camp. Oh. Raise your hand if you ever got fired from camp. That's it. Show it. That's really good showing. Raise your hand if you got rehired by camp. Okay, all right. Raise your hand if, hear me out for this whole one, we're a counselor and snuck out at night, hold on, got up to shenanigans, hold on, and when you returned, Clark was lying in your bunk. And finally, raise your hand if you can imagine this laugh. Thank you.
My name is Tom Helfrich. I pastor at St. Rita Catholic Church in Clark Lake. I never spent a night at Camp STORE, but many years at Camp DeSales. Now, I'm a Toledo boy myself, but I didn't get to know Clark until, as director of campus sales, we were just at a point we needed to move somehow, to grow. So I came to Clark as a mentor. And that was a long time ago, and our relationship never ended. I think he was always fascinated. I didn't quite fit his mold of priest. He used to refer to me as a maverick every once in a while. And I had to dress a little formally just to do it for him. I'm so honored and delighted to be here. Now I want to say a prayer because I do things like that. But before that, I'd like to read a letter from him, June 22nd, 2018. The PSs are up on top. A word about Marilyn's dementia. And the meal schedule, is it Story Point or Stony Point? Story Point. We sleep through breakfast. My dear Father Tom had just noticed on this note and on the check, I've been involved with a family camping program. We bring in folks from New York City to a camp in southeastern Ohio. This is our 25th year. We call it Camp Elaborate. And we go year to year on donations. And I will ask anybody, so if you'd like to donate to another cause, grab me before you go. I just noticed on this note and on the check are two bogus addresses. We're not fleeing the law. And I believe the above address will hold since we've been here for more than 2 years. Keep up the good work at Elaborate. Family camping, in my opinion, is the most important element in the organized camping movement. If you wander into the Ann Arbor area, come have lunch or dinner with us. In his name, Clark and Marilyn. Now, I know Clark led devotions. And I know he prayed. But I have no idea that he had any church contact. I think that's why I'm here. He wanted a little bit of action from that direction. But I'm so grateful for him and so grateful for his family and being so warm and welcoming. Now, do not bow your heads. Raise your eyes and your hands and let us pray. Lord, we lift up our hearts to you, our souls. We lift up to you our cares, our fears and worries and concerns, and we give you our gratitude. Thanks for blessing us with Clark for so long. What a good run. As we pray in thanks, we ask your special touch and blessing is Marilyn still with us?
Yes.
On Marilyn and all those who struggle like she does. We pray that you open our eyes just a little bit wider to your presence and your touch. That you set us free from the savage independence that sometimes isolates us from one another and even from you. We thank you for your love. And we thank you for the model of it we found in Clark. May we pass it on generously. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Sorry. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. That's my mission as a Catholic priest, to teach Catholics how to say amen out loud. And just this final thought, even though I never spent time at store, somehow I was over here to meet with him, and it was like, oh, just a minute. So he came running out with his briefcase and climbed the tower and did his swan dive in his business suit. Thank God I had a chance to see that. My name is Greg McKee, and I had the honor, privilege, and the endurance to work with Clark from 1961 when I was a camper until he left camp in 1986. They told me 3 minutes. Good luck. But 3 minutes is interesting because that's what you did when you went to a Dale Carnegie course. Dale Carnegie gave you 3 minutes. The idea is you should be able to talk in 3 minutes. So Clark was a huge Dale Carnegie advocate. I think it was in the trend. I'm going to talk a little bit about transformative today. Dale Carnegie was a transformative experience. Part of it because Clark stuttered early on, just like Moses, but overcame it, I think, through music and through the Carnegie. I think Carnegie was one of the major things. So here we go. And Mike Anderson's going to be right in front of me. Okay, good. Okay. I want to share a scene with you. The scene's in a boardroom somewhere in Toledo, 1960. There's the search committee for camp, and they're looking for a new director. And so, and John Anderson is the one in charge. And the years 1954 through 60 were not as kind to camp as it could have been. Can I say that? So they're looking for a director, and this guy Ewing, they really think he can do it because he has a great background and such. So they say, okay, Clark, you're our guy. What's your answer? He goes, I accept. And John Anderson, this is the story that Clark told. John Anderson says, takes his papers all over his table, goes, yippee! Throws the papers up and all over the place and stuff. And such, that's when the transformation, at that moment, when those papers were still coming down, that's when the transformation began. What kind of a transformation for camp? Because I would ask to talk about some of the guiding principles. And one of the first ones was obvious. He was grounded in Store's heritage. And camping is a very unique thing. Tom, you can speak to this, I think. It is not, you don't go to a workshop. You don't get a degree. Well, you can get a degree in camping, but if you don't have a mentor, forget it. Clark had a mentor, Doc Miller. Doc Miller's one of the greatest thing in life is service. And the moment those pages came down, Clark became more of a servant than he ever had before. And the rest, as they say, is history. Doc had a plaque, he would remind us, he had a plaque in his office, the greatest thing in life is service. And Clark exemplified that, and you struggled like heck to make sure you could try to live up to half of what he was doing. One of the key things, I think, early on was age-appropriate programming. That's what I learned. One of the things I took away, and still, you don't work with a 5-year-old the same way you work with a 13-year-old. Well, good luck if you're going to work with a 13-year-old like a 5-year-old. It won't work. They'll eat your lunch. And so Clark really worked at the idea that each age group had needs that you had to take care of. If you did that, you probably were going to be successful. And one of the great examples I have was from 1968 to 1972, the Explorer Village. When the girls' camp started here in 68, they moved the Explorers back over, and something magical that was here was lost. Because our numbers went from I remember the statistic, 168 to 104, eek. That's a problem. So Ron Paoletti, one of the counselors I went to Clark, and said, well, there's a place out there where the primitives had, and we think that'd be a great place for a program for the adolescents, and we can go back over here and we'll do it. He said, it's not so fast. Stop for a second, please. What are the needs of the adolescent?
Ron and I we're at a picnic table right out here, I think, and we're going, I don't know, we don't know. So we spent the next hour talking about the needs of adolescents and the program that needs to reflect that program. So the Outback was born out of that conversation that Clark had. He stopped us and he looked at guiding principles. There they were. And I've never forgotten that. How many people have run a program that was age appropriate because of Clark Ewing? Raise your hand, please. There should be more hands. Because I think it was just a gift what he did. That was important. Now, the second thing I want to talk about was the importance of volunteerism. Clark, I would have had a bumper, if there had been a bumper sticker, I should have gotten it, was my board can beat up your board. Because he went out and recruited the best board members possible. And he listened to them and he allowed them to have real input rather than sort of a rubber stamp. Some of them are here today. Raise your hand if you were a board member with Clark. Or a board member at STORE, please. These are the people that are the heroes and set the stages and set the guidelines and support it. It made ask the hard questions. Number one, volunteers. Number two was getting out and rolling up your sleeves. The first project that Clark ever did, anybody know? He planted trees between the dining hall and the YMCA across the lake. And he personally oversaw that. And that still screamed that way. Clark thought that way. He was thinking usually 10, 15 years ahead of us. And so therefore, the volunteerism was important. And then there was Project 600. Project 600, basically, how many people were involved with Project 600? Look at this. You know where the name Project 600 came from? He had 60 guys to give 10 hours on a weekend. Project 600. If you use the math, Mike, it's 600. So, and then there came Operation Green Tree. And Operation Green Tree, one of the few projects that had its own fight song. And it was sung to the tune of the University Salida fight song. I won't do it right now. The music is so sublime, I don't want to get so ridiculous too quickly. But how many people were involved in Operation Green Tree? Unbelievable. And what it did was, one of the things that it did was screen this place. So there was no, he knew there was going to be intrusion. Boy, he was right. And because of his genius, those projects planted. And I have stories of Operation Green Tree, which I won't go into right now. I think those were the two of the big ones. And I also want to give credit to a group that, there was so much volunteerism going on. We did a thing called the Trash-a-thon. How many people were involved in the Trash-a-thon? The Trash-a-thon was Judy Harbaugh. Right? Judy Harbaugh, and basically the Trash-a-thon raised money so we could do things for Operation Green Tree. Am I correct on that? I think that's the way it worked. So volunteerism permeated what we were here. Not to mention the counselors, the high school counselors that came up every Sunday night for outdoor education that we had to work with. Volunteerism is at the core of this place and continues to be the core of this place. So, and I want to urge you to think about that. I was the one who talked about Clarkisms because I started putting on, I'll put several of the Clarkisms. My favorite is, one of my favorites, there's nothing so permanent as a temporary arrangement. And actually, I can point to one of the greatest examples, which was this trailer that the staff lived in with outdoor education. It was going to be replaced. It was going to be replaced. Oh no, it wasn't. 10 years later, it was still being used. Could not believe it. There is nothing so permanent as a temporary arrangement. Another one, how many people here have ever been dragged kicking and screaming into the arena, which was the arena was stepping into a new role and such. And Mary Mel, you better have your hand up. Because, I mean, he brought out the best and then he kept pushing. He knew how to push us, he knew when to push us, and he knew when to also say, let's stop, Jason, and then think about this for just a second. So those are the things that really speak to my heart. And another one of the principles, very quickly, was land acquisition. This whole block around here is him, piece by piece, picking up land, buying land, purchasing land, and then putting that screen around it that makes this place so blooming special. That's genius. That's thinking way ahead. And he was a visionary. And and when you worked for him, you just ran to try to keep up with his vision, which you never were going to do. You knew that was going to happen. I want a quick story. 2 stories. One story? No, just a quick one. Basically, Clark loved flying, right? One of my favorite stories, 2 of the teachers, upper education teachers, said, we'd like to go flying. And one of them said, I'm afraid of heights. And Tim Milburn, who was here today, Rick County Director, said, that won't be a problem. Because he was so low, the heights were not a problem. One of my favorite quotes of all time. And now, Father Tom, we did do devotions. One of Clark's I'm going to end with. And that was basically one of the great stories of the Bible, I think, is Jesus comes, they've had a long night or whatever. Jesus is supposed to meet them at the water, and they're supposed to meet with him. And these guys, the disciples, decided to go out in the lake and go fishing. Now, if I were Jesus right there, I'd say, excuse me, guys, you're supposed to be here. I can't believe you're not here. But remember what Jesus did? He built a fire, which means he was an outdoorsman, which means he understood the needs of people first. And he goes, any luck, boys? They're out there in the lake. And Peter goes, no. And I said, well, maybe you could try something. And Peter gets really ticked and goes, maybe you could try the other side. So it's like, hey, I'm the fisherman. What are you doing telling me where the fish should be? And the answer is, toss your nets to the other side, boys. And they did. And if you realize what 153 fish they called it. I mean, they even count. The Bible counts the fish. I said, that's the real one. What are you doing? Let's talk about the fish. Okay, don't count them. And they bring it in. And he, of course, then he feeds them. Then he shares with them. It was one of those major moments. Okay? And the reason I say that story is that was what Clark did the minute that John Anderson threw all those papers out. Right? He said, God was saying, cash unit over here, cash unit in service, cash unit, and your life will be so abundant that you won't be able to take care of all the fish that you've got. Isn't that what happened? It really is. George Bernard Shaw, this is a quote, was, life is not a brief candle. It is a splendid torch, and I want to keep that torch as high as I can before giving it to other people and passing it on. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what Clark did. So my challenge in the end, when we lost Zach Wood, Clark came up, picked up the slack for Zach. I say today, keep the spark for Clark. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Clark's Final Campfire. I've come to realize since losing Dad that he wasn't just like a best friend, he was a best friend. He was someone we wanted to share things with. And we could do this because he remained a vital force in our lives until the end. His interest in the world, in his family and friends, was vibrant and youthful. He had vigorous opinions about what was going on in the world. And like a best friend, even as his energy failed him, he abidingly demonstrated his support, appreciation, and love for all of us. He was often ahead of his time and showed a remarkable ability to adapt and change, moving Storm from an all-boys camp to one that embraced girls and women was a great example. Having 3 daughters first helped bring that about. He believed in the power and capabilities of women. He had us painting fences, driving tractors, where's Jerry Drake, running writing programs, as well as working in the kitchen. I miss his sense of humor as much as anything. Although I did plenty of eye rolling and, oh, Dad. We usually appreciated the same things. The morning of the day he went into the hospital for the last time. I had taken him to an appointment with his cardiologist. And in the examining room, while the nurse practitioner took notes, I picked up a New Yorker magazine and I found a great cartoon. I slid it over to Dad. And exhausted and weak as he was, I got exactly the cackle I was looking for. Didn't we love to make him laugh? 2 nights later, Jill and I were visiting him in the hospital. He was in pain. He had an NG tube down his throat and into his stomach, which I understand is very uncomfortable. The nurse came in to see that it was working properly, and as he was adjusting it, one of us suggested that Dad might want to stop talking. But the nurse said no, it was actually helping. So Dad recited the entire cremation of Sanctity. It was his last performance. Going back to a much older memory, when I was 19 and working at a camp in Ohio, I was terribly homesick for Storr. From his picnic table in the Pine Grove, he wrote a 3-page letter full of news, compassion, and understanding. Of course, he gently admonished me to think of the kids first. And he cautioned that I shouldn't let any difference in the other camp plunge me into misery. Instead, he wrote, "It should build into you a resolve which I have always prayed would go out from here in people, that other places and other people and other endeavors are going to feel the spirit of Camp Storr, which is basically the Holy Spirit of God working through us wherever we go, and certainly not only in one chunk of his real estate." As I look out over this crowd, I see so many people who've done exactly that. Close behind his love for family and friends was Dad's concern for our sacred earth. He loved and delighted in his great-grandchildren beyond words. All of you down there. And he would want us to keep the spark for Clark by preserving our world for their generation and beyond. So I'll close with the words to a song by Pete Seeger, who could have been channeling Dad. To my old brown earth and to my old blue sky, I now give these last few molecules of I. And you who sing, and you who stand nearby, I do charge you not to cry. Guard well our human chain. Watch well you keep it strong as long as sun will shine. In this, our home, keep pure and sweet and green. For now I'm yours, and you are also mine.
All right, I'm going to sing again, but I can't resist doing this. I'll never have another opportunity. Greg spoke about volunteerism, and I've already bumped into a number of you, but when I was here on professional staff, my job was to run the weekend camping program, and we staffed it entirely with volunteers. And so can I see the hands of everybody in this room who was part of that volunteer staff on the weekends? You were absolutely fantastic. Let me just say that. We're going to do now, when it's camp time in Camp Storr, and it says here that it's done to the tune when it's springtime in the Rockies. I don't know the tune. But I do know the tune to when it's camp time in Camp Storr. So if we could go, that'll be about that tempo. Here we go. When it's camp time in Camp Storr, that's the place I long to be. With its stars and golden sunsets flickering in my memory. Let me see my friends beside me.
Hello, I'm Sean Ewing, son of John Ewing and one of Clark's grandsons. I just wanted to read this eulogy written by John Ewing on his behalf. It is the custom for the eldest son to give a eulogy, but since I have other commitments, I could not escape. I've asked my son to do the honors for me. I think Pop would be very happy with the arrangement in any case, as he loves Sean as much as any father could love a son. I thought I should start by honoring his lifelong admonition for honesty by running down a few of his less than wonderful traits, and get them out of the way before all the good stuff. Pop always insisted on that we hold a celebration, not a funeral. And when he died, in any celebration of full of life like Pa's has to mention that he could be bullheaded, opinionated, and sometimes frustratingly annoyed, but always with an undercurrent of love and affection. I've been in a unique position to know many men who never knew their fathers, or at best wished they never knew them. When I would see the effects of a neglected father on them, I would feel an almost physical sense of strength from a father I always knew loved me, supported me, and felt joy in my life and the lives of my siblings, no matter what paths our lives took, no matter what my failing was. I never doubted that he would do anything for me, sacrifice anything for me. More importantly, he taught us to be that parent for our kids. What greater gift could a father give his child? Most of you know Pa's life's achievements, helping, mentoring thousands of kids, young men and women. I'm confident others will speak to the great man he was to so many of you. He was a great man to me too, a mentor and an example I always looked up to and admired. He was a surrogate father to my children. Until the end of his life, he was, at heart, still a kid himself. A trait I'm thankful I inherited, and I hope to God he's passed on to my kids. Whatever else you do, have fun and love your family. That was his fundamental lesson to us. When I was 16, I attended the National Outdoor Leadership School in Wyoming's Wind River Mountains. A gift from Pa that set the course of my life's avocation and vocation. We were required to keep a daily journal on the 5-week expedition. My pages were filled with typical observations about weather, routes, classes, tent mate gripes, and so forth. Other than my fellow expedition members, my journal mentioned only one other person, my Pa. I wrote that I missed him more than anyone else. Pa, I will always miss you and love you. I hope you find love and fun wherever you are.
My name is Latham Ewing, and through some misfortunate events, or fortunate events, in 1975 I left the middle of the Lebanese Civil War and somehow ended up at the Toledo, Ohio. A few days later, Clark pulls up in a yellow van, and we take a ride. We stop first to get Verner's. It was my first introduction to Verner's favorite. He said, I must taste Verner's, being coming from so far away. We drove, I never forget, the ride from Toledo up to the camp. I had one suitcase. And throughout the whole drive, I could sense that Clark was really assessing who I was. And also probing to really understand the events that I had gone through in the Civil War and all of that. Get to camp. A few days later, he comes to me and says, Latham, I'm going to send you to the Smoky Mountains to spend the next 2 months leading backpacking trips with intercity kids from Toledo, Ohio. And maybe somehow that was one of the most therapeutic, maybe rewarding experiences I've had. I've worked with the YMCA before in Lebanon and other parts, but that experience itself was really pivotal in my life. And that was really the beginning of a long association with Clark and the Ewing family, who became virtually my family in the United States. That relationship extended in time to my family. wife, my boys who attended camp. And through it all, we were always associated with the Ewings, but mainly with Clark. And my deepest appreciation of what Clark was that Clark had this talent or knack to really deeply understand people and to really inspire them to get the best out of who they are. I know that had a lot to do with me. And he did the same with my family. My boys always looked up to Clark. One of my sons went to the University of Michigan. Clark taught him how to drive. But more importantly, I think through teaching him how to drive, he passed on a lot of things about life and about his experiences and how Bilal, who's here today, should think about things and so on. Clark was always, to me, very insightful. He had a very keen sense of sensing people and understanding them and inspiring to really do what's best in them. He was always funny. He was always very loving. And throughout, although we lived overseas, we would always be in contact. Out of the blue, he would call us, sometimes not knowing what the time it was. We would strive every summer to come and spend a few weeks in Michigan and Ann Arbor to see Jill and so on, but also to spend time with Clark and Marty. Because we loved being with them and we were always affected by the enthusiasm and the excitement and so on, of being alive and doing things for others and so on. He definitely understood, in my family, every one of us. He could really communicate with each one of members of my family at their level. And that's something I believe God really did with everyone. Whoever he touched with, he, first of all, deeply understood who they were. He really understood how to really inspire them to give the best out of themselves. So Clark will always live in our hearts. My family, we feel like Ewings in many ways. We are Ewings that live now very far away. And we really wanted, we really miss this for the world. We came especially to be here today to really celebrate Clark's life. So I'm deeply honored that somehow from a very distant land I was touched by Clark in a very deep and profound way.
The chairs are all filled. That's great. My name is Ralph Drake.
Use the mic.
My name is Ralph Drake, and I grew up in Toledo. And my first contact with Clark was when he was the advisor to my freshman high Y club at DeVilbiss High School. And that was the beginning that my mother made me come. She gave me no choice. You will go. And I thank her. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you, and I feel Clark is with us. Having met him in 1951 means that over those next 4 years, Clark's advice and strong presence was shared equally among our club of about 35 young guys, and was instrumental in my decision to become a YMCA director. His enthusiasm, his spiritual encouragement, and his humor, and that's been referred to several times, his humor set an example that has served me throughout my life. And here's a couple of highlights from our 68-year friendship. And I've already spoken to 2 other individuals here about the next item that I have. At an American Camping Association gathering with Clark, host, he had a lot of hand in planning that was local. The guest speaker, who was to speak for 30 minutes, put his coat on after 10 and left. The choir to follow was just getting organized, and so Clark was filled with confusion. What do I do? What do I do? How can I start? Would anybody care to guess? You know, don't you? The cremation is Sammy. And the audience loved it, much more than the speaker who could see it. Over the years, Clark always, and I stress always, began our telephone conversations by asking to first speak with my wife. He'd say, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Barbara. I recall to this day how pleased I was when he gave her a big hug when we met him in his office prior to our wedding. We've lived in Reno for the past 35 years, and no matter where we lived, we made sure to visit Marilyn and Clark, always welcome. They always welcomed us with smiles and some really corny jokes. And when we first visited family in Toledo or our daughter in Howell, Michigan, the extended Ewing family, and I will underline, was always a topic in our conversations. And as these, I'm estimating 50 people that are more that aren't here, as the family grew, my opportunity to speak was reduced because I could only stay so long. And there was big pictures, and I guess they're hanging off over on the south side here. He has information about one or another. It was just amazing. It's always, I found I could not keep up with him as he described their many skills and accomplishments, and that's been a touchdown here, obviously, as we've heard. Our first son, born in 1963, is named Peter Clark Drake. My mother didn't like that, but my mother didn't have that same name as us, Barbara and I. Peter Clark. In 1968, I took my first job as a camp director at the YMCA called Camp Brooklyn in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. Clark and I exchanged a strong counselor for 2 weeks over a few summers. We and Camp Brooklyn, the Poconos, served campers from the New York City area. And we thought that would be a good experience for a store counselor and vice versa, that a store leader here would enjoy our camp in the Poconos. And I think both camps, and Clark agreed, we profited from those experiences. And here's another one that was mentioned already. I recall Clark would sometimes lay in a counselor's bed at night after taps when the counselor was where he shouldn't have been. Thank God it wasn't me. Our gathering today reflects my friendship with Clark many times over, reflecting his legacy for many years to come, and I feel blessed. Thank you.
All right, Have Thine Own Way. It's the next song we'll do it. It's on your song sheet. Let's do the first and the last verses of this song. Have thine own way, Lord. Have thine own way. Yeah.
and strange things done in the midnight sun. One for gold, and those ardent trails have their secret tales. Make your blood run cold. Last campfire, right? I thought I'd just throw it in. I also want to mention this picture that I love dearly, which I forgot to bring that frame version today, but this is at twilight sailing under the Big Mac Bridge, North Channel sailing trip. Had a lot of great times with that guy. So I start my thing. Good afternoon, I'm Rob Ewing, Clark and Marilyn's youngest. I would say that I'm one of the greatest beneficiaries of their love for this place and the unique opportunity to have shared in that love and the growth with many of you wonderful people sitting here today. For me, Clark Latham Ewing, his greatest gift was not only his undying belief in each of our capabilities, particularly in our youth, to think, to learn, to lead, and to love. It was also his remarkable vision to not only grow the spirit, mind, and body of his charges, but also to use his creative energy to build and enhance the programs and facilities that have helped shape the physical plan of this camp with the support of great organizations and families like the Andersons. I think I'm nervous enough I need a page turner today. Anyways, he was an integral part of growing this rare gem of the Toledo Y, from 100 plus acres to over 1,000 under his tenure. I think of the girls' camp, international staff. There are 20 here this year. International campers, and Bassam is one, of course, that I love dearly. But there's the ranch. There's Venture Out, Trailblazers to some, dialysis camp, cancer camp, outdoor education, just to name a few. One of the things nearest and dearest to his heart was his desire for all kids to attend camp. He was particularly fond of the 2-week periods or longer, feeling that it made the greatest impact on the lives of campers. Those of us lucky enough to spend summers at Store know the meaning of this. But the cost is a significant factor, even for 1-week periods these days, and Clark wanted me to share with all of you his desire to grow his endowment fund that will give more kids access to a rich camp experience. This was perhaps his most important vision and the legacy for which he wanted to be remembered. So the challenge is to all who buy in and believe in the man we honor here today, that we take up the mantle to support that dream. I'll hope that you'll join in an effort to raise the existing $83,000 endowment fund to $1 million to send Clark's kids to camp through direct scholarships like Camp Catch a Rainbow, partnerships with organizations like Washtenaw Camp Placement. So if you are interested, which I hope you are, you can contact Becky, or I suppose me, or Marcia. And I just want to say, to wrap things up for me, I love my sisters and my family. And I wish Mom could be here today, but it's not meant to be. And I love all of you. So, thank you.
I wore my uniform to honor Clark. He was very encouraging and supportive, wrote a nice letter to the Air Force, decision to make the forces my career. And yes, it's fairly new. The old one shrank. You know how you see this in the Sunday comics a lot, where a guy will climb a mountain, go up there to see the guru, find out what the meaning of life is. Keep that in mind, I'll get back to it. I'm going to tell a story. A lot of you have heard this because Clark told this, it seemed like, whenever he got the chance. But in the spring of '62, I was in an automobile accident where I broke my back. I ended up in a body cast. And the thing that was weighing me most heavily on my mind while I'm laying in that hospital in Hamilton, Ohio, is what a miserable summer I had to look forward to, because Clark, no way Clark's going to hire me because I can't do anything. I was about the 4th or 5th day in the hospital, I get a phone call, and it's Clark. And all he wants to know is what special needs I'm going to need, and to get to camp as soon as I physically can. Now, in those days, the first 3 weeks of camp was girls' camp. And I mostly hung with the camp staff kids. And the campers would have chapel about 9 in the morning. We'd go around and inspect their cabins, make sure they were cleaning them up. Then we decided camp needed a butterfly collection. You know, we made a couple of nets, and Robbie Ewing, he was our net man. But anyway, girls' camp was over, and then it's boys' camp going to start. Camp's getting ready for that. So Clark grabs me, piles me into the 58 Chevy station wagon he had. He says, we got to go to Jackson, get some stuff. So we get in, and he hands me a clipboard and a pen, and he says, Hook, here, take notes. You're now the assistant camp director. So what I thought was going to be the worst summer of my life was, without question, the best summer of my life. Now that's where Clark stopped telling his story, but there's more. It was the last day of camp, the night of the final banquet. Clark and I are walking from his apartment to the dining hall. He didn't say, but I think he was considering me for the Doc Miller Award. But he says to me, Hook, have you been smoking? And I said, yes. I'm sorry, Clark, I've let you down. Now, I've known Clark for, 65 or so years, and I have never seen this man. And he said, wrong, Hook, you've let yourself down. Now, you've all heard that joke where the guy takes a 2x4, smashes it over the head of the donkey to get its attention. Well, that's what this was like for me. Wrong, Hook, you've let yourself down. You see, Clark didn't have to climb any mountain to go talk to a guru to find out what the meaning of life was. He knew. And he dedicated his life so that so many of the rest of us might get it too. And that's why I loved him so. And I'm going to miss him. I kind of wish there was a picture here, but I know he's here somewhere. I just like to see him.
Oh, I see where everybody's going. Oh my gosh. I'm Nancy Ewing. I'm the middle kid, which is something I shared with my father. And as I've heard everybody, I have a different perspective about Dad because I haven't been here for 40 years. I've lived in California and raised my family there. So my words are a little bit different because because it really isn't about camp. I think it's more, I had a window on him that was a little more personal, that didn't involve so many camp activities. Today, I'd like to highlight a unique characteristic of my father's, Pa's remarkable ability to make friends from acquaintances so immediately. I was always amazed when I came to visit my parents at Silver Maples or University Living or Bregan Village or Story Point through these past years, that he knew the names and life histories of all the administrative staff, the maintenance staff, the food servers, the residents or inmates, as he called them. The same phenomenon happened with his medical providers. I mean, he knew everything about his doctors and all of his caregivers, and I spoke so highly of everybody that helped him medically. And I think when we were kids, none of us really understood what that was about him. I mean, he was our father. But I'm sure that was a lot of the reason why he was so successful here, because as Bassam talked about, he had this ability to, and he was sensitive to people. The ease with people was a manifestation of his great and deep love for all of us humans. He cared so much about people, starting with his family, but the whole world, as we all found out. He lived one of his often repeated phrases, and I looked it up, maybe Francis Bacon from 400 years ago, to have a friend be one. Another one was from Dale Carnegie, because I remember the books. He said, I never met a man I didn't like except Trump. As a music teacher, I'm often telling children that if they have a gift for music, they need to be responsible to it and develop it. Pa lived that idea of being responsible to his ability to relate to people more than anybody else I can think of, more than any person I've met in the musical world or any world. He really could do that. It was a skill. Finally, when I had to break the news of my son's death that Sunday morning, he immediately coined the phrase, pick up the slack for Zach. It was an emanation of his core being, even though he was hurting too. He was trying to help us, survivors. He reminded us of that saying many times since 2015 with his behavior. I mean, he'd look at me, I'd say, it's like, Pa, you're talking to all these people, and pick up the slack for Zach. That he just would reply to me. And I have to say, I don't do such a good job at that, but I hope I get better at it for him. So now, I'm sure he would approve of my request. Since all of you are from such different parts of his life and different parts of the world, turn to your neighbor, please. Introduce yourself and tell your neighbor how your life intersected with my father.
Standing here, I heard Clark explain that he learned this hymn from Doc Miller, who introduced it to him. I have never seen it in hymnal anywhere other than here. Are there some in the room who have?
Right,
A few.
actually, when I was hunting, I've been in a lot of churches in the past since 2000, so I tried to find it easier.
So this is probably the highest concentration of people who do know this that we're ever going to have assembled on the planet. So I think, frankly, we ought to stand up. And let's do all three verses. Yeah.
For me in grace.
Thank you for all coming today. I'd like to recognize two members of my family, especially tonight. That would be George Ewing, my Uncle George, and Charles Chuck Ewing, my Uncle Chuck, my father's brothers. My name is Linda Ewing Ayers Forster. I was born lucky, the second child of Clark and Marilyn Ewing. My father was part of my life for over 70 years. It wasn't enough. We talked about anything and everything over the years, often about death. He was always prepared for everything, even his own death. He had a file folder titled Ultimate Demise, ha! Exclamation point. Filled with his favorite music, instructions, notes, names, and euphemisms describing death. In the file, I found several copies of a quote from Benjamin Franklin that I had sent to him a few years ago with the note I had written. I want to share it with you. Dad, I ran across this recently and thought you might like it as much as I do. I have come to appreciate your quirky, celebratory view of death. As I gaze unflinchingly at my own mortality, I find it comforting. You don't even realize all the groovy things you do for me. And thank you, Ben. Love your spirit. And I quote Benjamin Franklin. A man is not completely born until he is dead. Why then should we grieve that a new child is born among the immortals? We are spirits, that bodies should be lent us while they afford us pleasure, assist us in acquiring knowledge or in doing good to our fellow creatures, is a kind of benevolent act of God. When they become unfit for these purposes and afford us pain instead of pleasure, instead of an aid, become an encumbrance and answer none of these intentions for which they were given, it is equally kind and benevolent that a way is provided by which we get rid of them. Death is that way. End of quote. After my father's death, I wanted to feel his presence, see signs from him. I had even asked him to send me a message from the other side. When on his deathbed, he joked about passing away and how we should tell everyone that he croaked. I can't really fathom immortality or eternity, nor have I gotten any messages or signs from him. At least, I don't think so. But this I know, I have half of his DNA. So yes, he is very much here and now in me, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, all of my family, his family, all of us have these threads of his greatness, physically intertwined with our own. We are here today to honor what he gave each of us, his friendship and unconditional love, his unwavering devotion and loyalty, his curiosity and wisdom, discipline, irreverent humor, unfaltering optimism, and joy in life. This isn't just a memory, but a clear and present part of the immortality which he gave to every one of us in so many ways. In this beautiful fashion, he is an eternal reminder of how to live our best life, to give more, to forever seek to increase the depth and breadth of our love, and to be continually devoted to his motto, Camp's motto, God is first, others second, and I'm third.
Years trying to do this, and I never had the guts to do it, but Cole. Of course, under everyone's seat, a selected newspaper article handpicked by Clark for you before you purchase it. It's not all up under your sheets. Looking out at everyone this afternoon, I have to smile and feel very lucky. A wonderful gathering of great people, all remembering such a unique and special person. Be joyous today. We are the lucky ones. The ones brought together by Clark from so many different places and so many different connections. Lucky that we have experienced his gifts so many, many different ways. Just a few years ago, we celebrated Clark's 90th birthday, as many of you remember, and I watched him opening cards and gifts. I made a comment to him at the party. You know, this year, I am exactly half your age. He chuckled and nodded, taking time to think and respond. He looked at me and he said, "You have a lot of great stuff yet to give." And that exchange has stayed with me and grown. And now I know why. I'm lucky to have seen in the first half of my life what amazing things can be done by a great man in the last half of his. The classic saying, somewhat abridged, if I can accomplish and touch half as much in so many in a positive way in my entire life as he did in the last half of his, that would be a great thing. Clark has an amazing way of spreading that ethereal, lucky feeling you get you know someone that special. As a little boy, I remember thinking how incredibly lucky I was. Clark was my gramps, the camp director. I got to go with him and do whatever he did, go with him wherever he went, watch him lead hundreds in joyous song, lucky to watch the magic he could create with a story like Sam McGee or a song like My High Silk Hat. Walking from camp village to village, listening and watching him play taps on that trumpet every night as a boy. Such a satisfying way to end the day. Marveling that small boy, knee-high, at his grandfather's huge calves as he strolled across the grass and thinking, I want to be like that. Fast forward a few years, and as I introduced him to friends in high school, my wife included, he would crack jokes, make us patented silly faces, even take some of us flying. I think that's still why you may have called me after all those years. And I would think, I'm so lucky. Gramps is really a funny guy. Fast forward a few more years, and I'm reintroducing him to the woman who would be my wife and the child who would be my daughter, realizing I'm so lucky that they get to know him. Continue to fast forward a few more years, a few more decades, and thinking how lucky all my children, and now my grandchild is, that they get to know who Clark is, knowing they will always have that luck with them. There's a perfect quote that I'd love to take credit for, but I won't, for today and the position that we are all in. It is truly the duty of the living to carry on the memory of those that are no longer here. The best way that we can do that, and this is an underlying theme throughout all of these, is to take a moment or two every day and to think about how you can make someone else feel lucky that they know you. That they can feel lucky they asked for your help. That they can feel lucky they picked up the phone to give you a call. I don't think there's any greater way to carry on the memory of Clark than to make someone else feel lucky that they know you. That you are out there for them. It's a wonderful way to extend his legacy for many years to come. Help pass on that wonderful, lucky feeling that Clark shared with all of us, and continue to do that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Celia. I'm Clark's great-granddaughter. It's hard not to repeat so much of all the great things that are being said about him, but it was a big deal to write about him because my whole life, he really did live up to the title of great grandfather. And I've been blessed to grow up in his family, surrounding me, the Ewing clan and everyone. And I think I've gotten a special spot as a fourth generation in this family. You know, I don't have as much time with him as much as my dad and my grandma and everyone else has, but I got to see him impact me directly, but also indirectly through my time here at camp and just at family functions and everything. He had a tendency, I think, to leave little bits and pieces of himself in the places he went and with the people he met. And it's really cool to feel those pieces around here at camp, you know, at the waterfront, or whether it was singing songs around a campfire. I could still feel the warmth he would bring into a room anywhere that he was. It's hard to put that in words, but it is. I'm proud and I'm happy to be here at camp because I know I can just feel his energy is still here and his bits and pieces that he left here. It's important to see how his legacy here at camp has affected me and helped me grow, as well as my family and my camp family, the friends and counselors that I meet here. I can confidently say that his work has changed and is continuing to change the lives of everyone who's been lucky enough to go here. Because of him, I grew up with a second family, and we already talked about his family isn't just blood, but this whole family, this room, has taught me unconditional love and, you know, to just live in the moment, live in the now, and be who you want to be. And I'm finding a lot of strength and comfort talking up here because I see all the little bits and pieces of him and everyone. His booming voice and when my father speaks, and the boundless energy that I see in my grandma. Even when we go shopping, she's always wanting to go. He was the same way. And we all shared his humor and his love. I will forever thank him for sharing the importance and passion of service because he's inspired me to be the best version of myself and to pursue a path in service in a like way that he did. And now while we celebrate Clark, as a whole, it brings a lot of tears to our eyes, but I know also it brings a smile to our faces and a warmth in our hearts knowing that he left the best pieces of himself with us that we can continue to share and pass on.
Well, we're coming to close on the sharing, and just how wonderful has this been. I can just imagine what's going through each of your heads as you reflect on these stories and where you intersected with Clark. Just a few thoughts to kind of recap some of my own. I'll start with Celia. She started with great. It was the first thing she talked about, and how great thou art, Clark. Some of the stuff that went through my head and all your heads, I mean, how many times did we hear the word irreverent? But I will tell you, as we went to light a campfire, Clark could be very reverent, deal silently and reverently. He always had his eye on the goal. So, but he believed you could work hard, and you could play hard, and you could have fun. I had something a little different in my relationship with him, although I was a camper. When he was a director, he was my counselor on the Venture Out trip. I worked for him on staff. He also worked for me as chairman of the board. And I will tell you, you learn the impatience of that wonderful guy if you weren't focused on that end goal. And he had a special way to deal with those who were above him in authority. And he taught us a lot about that too, because you need to get focused on what you want to do. Awesome. You, along with several others, talked about probably the most important thing that he had with me. He saw so much more in me than I saw in myself. The ability to to see each kid, the potential in every single human being. Several of you talked about that, and to help understand what they had the potential to be and what they could do. And even yet today, man, as you were talking, you talked about how good he was at things, and you talked about what you want to be from this moment forward, maybe a little better in some areas. Maybe that's one of the takeaways for each of us on how he impacted us. You go away, and Liam talked about it, halfway through life, he's got another half of life to serve. What are the things that we can take away today from this time together? He's sharing about this wonderful guy on how we can take our game to another level. And I'm going to end before I kind of deal with some housekeeping. And wouldn't you know it, I worked with him a long time, and he was a wonderful beggar. And Rob, you were up here, and sure enough, that wonderful ask to elevate what's in the fund for the Clark Ewing Endowment. And please don't forget about that and contribute and help grow that. We'll finish with a song, and then we'll have McKee Brothers on the trombone and the trumpet. As you know, Clark loved the bugle, he loved reveille, he loved taps, he loved to play it, and he loved to sing it. And after that, then we'll congregate around and socialize. We thank camp for allowing us to be here. What was mentioned before, camp does start tomorrow, and one of our jobs is to be out of here by 5 p.m. Thanks so much for being here with all our friends, and especially thanks to the Ewing family for bringing us together to remember your wonderful dad, grandpa, great-grandpa.
God be with us till we get together. Let's do the first and last verses on your song sheet there. Look at that, please.